Week 9 is behind us, and it did not disappoint. A lot of good games, a lot of controversy happened as well in Week 9, and we'll get into that in the episode. First thing I want to address is obviously Mike is not with me tonight. Unfortunately, he had to work night shift. Otherwise, like always, he would be here. We did discuss it, and we thought that it would be best for the podcast to just go ahead and have me record tonight's episode solo. So I'm going to do everything I can to make it through this episode. It is much more difficult alone. I will tell you that. Even the preparation for the episode is a lot different, the layout and how I plan on attacking this thing. But we are going to make it through it, and got a lot of stuff to go over with you. Got a lot of notes. So let's just jump right into it. The Fourth and Whatever podcast always starts out with the Tennessee game. In this one, Week 9, Tennessee at Kentucky. Tennessee did come away with the win in this one, 56-34. There were definitely moments during this game that made it not feel like a 56-34 game. I will say that. Kentucky's offense was surprising at times, or was it just that Tennessee's defense was terrible at times? Probably a little mixture of both. The way things have kind of played out so far this season for Tennessee's defense is a little it's a little easier to believe that, Tennessee's defense struggled in this one. Basically, starting off in the first quarter there, it looked like Tennessee was really going to jump on things and kind of take over the game early on, scoring 21 points in that first quarter, holding Kentucky to only 7 points in that first quarter. And then things started to get somewhat interesting. Kentucky kind of goes on a run, making big plays. Passing the ball, moving the ball all around the field, and just kind of looking uncharacteristic of what we were expecting from Kentucky. And it made it really uncomfortable. It made it really frustrating to watch at times. I know watching the game that Kentucky led the game statistically for a big portion during that middle chunk of the game. Total yards, it was kind of embarrassing. Kentucky led us in total yards for a good portion of this game. They led in rushing yards total for the whole game. And it's just not what you would have expected. I thought that Tennessee's defense made crucial mistakes, whether it was, in the formations or the schemes, maybe even just the grit or whatever you want to call it, that, Tennessee's defense, much like some of the rest of the games that we've played this far, Tennessee's defense just did not look up to task for this one. So over here in my notes, I do say that the game was frustrating to watch. Kentucky's offense just seemed like they would not go away for at least 2.5 quarters of this game. Tennessee's defense basically helped make Kentucky's quarterback, Cutter Boley, look like an all SEC type of quarterback. This guy coming into the game hadn't really put up that many good statistics. I think he might have thrown for 4 touchdowns total this season. But what does he do against Tennessee's secondary? Throws for 5 touchdowns, 330 yards, goes 26 for 35. And he did throw 1 pick, but that pick was, I think it got tipped at the line of scrimmage, and Tennessee ended up with the interception there. So, but an interception's an interception. That's really not what I'm kind of focusing on right here. I'm more or less focusing on how Cutter Boley pretty much picked apart our secondary. Moving forward, it doesn't give you a lot of confidence as a fan going forward with the tough slate that we have left, and basically playing out of your 4 games left, you've got 2 ranked, 1 on the road at the Swamp. It just doesn't feel very comforting knowing that this happens to Tennessee's defense almost every game, seemingly. They burned Tennessee's defense so many times on so many plays. And then, the inability for Tennessee to get teams off the field on third down. In this game in particular, Kentucky went 5 for 12 on third down conversions. And, oftentimes on third down, they just made it look so easy. There was a moment in the game that I remember, don't exactly remember when it happened, but Tennessee had Kentucky 3rd and 7, I believe, and Kentucky just gets a conversion, but instead of just getting the first down, they go 30 yards on the play. So stuff like that, you definitely don't like seeing it, especially this late in the season, when you would think that, whatever struggles you may have had on the certain side of a ball at this point should have been addressed, should be fixed, should have improved somewhat. And honestly, I'll just say this, at certain points, it just looks like Tennessee's taken more step backs on defense. as opposed to improving. Now, obviously, I'm sounding very negative right now, which, I think there is a lot of negative things to take away from this game. We will jump to some positives, though. Tennessee, we talk about it every week. Tennessee racked up penalties. They always do. In this one, though, it wasn't as bad as some of the previous games. I will give Tennessee that. 6 penalties for 56 yards. So not terrible, but definitely could come back to haunt you, or could haunt you in future games. Like I mentioned earlier, especially that big one on the road that Tennessee can't seem to get over the hump at the Swamp against Florida. But something else that I noticed watching this game was Tennessee, even though we are a good rushing attack team, we run the ball really well. The potential threat of the passing game that we're so well known for does always pretty much open up that run game. And in this one, Tennessee just didn't seem like they could get the ball rolling on the ground, unfortunately. And I mentioned earlier that Kentucky actually outrushed Tennessee in this one, which was a big shocker for me. Did not see that one coming. Tennessee only rushed for 108 yards on 33 attempts. That's just, luckily for Tennessee, the passing game was strong, and it just didn't seem like Kentucky could stop anything through the air that Tennessee threw at them. But you do like to see that balanced attack. I think we've gotten so used to that as Tennessee fans. And when one phase of the game isn't there, against a team like this, you can get by with it, I feel like. But I don't think you can be that one-dimensional against some of these teams that we've got coming up. But yeah, the rushing attack just wasn't really there for Tennessee, and that was a shocker to me. The passing attack, however, let's go ahead and get into some of the positives. I think we spent enough time on the negatives there. The passing attack was on full display. Joey Aguilar threw for 396 yards on 20 for 26. Now this is pretty big. A 20 for 26. That is extremely accurate with the ball. He did throw 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and yeah, just super accurate. Anytime you go 20 for 26, 26 attempts is, I don't know for certain, but I feel like 26 attempts through the air might be on the lower end for Joey Aguilar this season. Something that we've been missing in the past couple of games is the deep pass. And fortunately, in this one, we did see Joey Aguilar connect on some of those deep passes. Beautifully thrown balls. Placement was on par. He was spreading the ball around really well in this one to the big three at our receivers. That's Chris Brazzell, Mike Matthews, and Braylon Staley. All three of those guys over 100 yards receiving, Brazzell and Matthews with a touchdown apiece. But, with the deep ball, talking about the accuracy of it, Joey had one play of 50 yards through the air, one play of 62 yards through the air, and one play of 56 yards through the air. So that deep ball definitely made its return in this one for sure. You got to love it. We've been missing that, I think, in the past couple of games. And I think that's one of Tennessee's bread and butters, man. You get that thing through the air on those deep passes, that pretty much opens up the rest of the playbook, because obviously the defense has to start preparing for that. And like I said, the big three looked really good, over 100 receiving yards each. Really, really good. Really good. I mean, I could sit here and read all these statistics and all that, but when I look at the games and so far this season, and I look at how everything's played out, I can't really say that I have too much to gripe about with Tennessee's offense. I think that Tennessee's offense can pretty much go toe-to-toe with any team offensively. I do think that, and it's no surprise, really not any breaking news here or anything, but the weak link for Tennessee is that defense, and it does scare me moving forward. And I think we are who we are at this point. I don't really think that anything's going to change defensively for us. I wish that Tim Banks and the defensive staff would switch something up just to see if something helps, because anytime a quarterback that isn't having a good season does what Cutter Boley did to us, it's not a good look, man. I mean, like I said earlier, 26 for 35, 330 yards through the air, 5 touchdowns. I mean, the kid was averaging 9.4 yards a pass. And you're not going to make it too far letting quarterbacks of that caliber do that to your defense. It's just not going to happen. I did mention that Kentucky led this game in rushing as well. They didn't really have any breakout running backs in this one. To my understanding, their star running back was out in this one with an injury. They kind of split the carries in this one. Dante Dowell 52 yards. Jason Patterson, 51 yards. So there's two backs right there that had a combined over 100 yards. And then they had a couple other guys, even including Cutter Boley, who had 31 rushing yards as well as the quarterback. I mean, as far as this game goes, it just was what it was. I felt like it was unnecessarily stressful at times. And I feel like the way that Tennessee opened the game with 21 straight points, after the first quarter, the score was 21-7. You let Kentucky kind of creep back into it and give themselves a sense of hope there in the second quarter. But I mean, there was never a moment in this game that I felt like Tennessee was going to slip up and maybe take a L in this one. But it was just so frustrating to watch. Like I said, some of the defensive mistakes, absolutely blown coverage several times. And you've just got to tighten it up. I mean, there's really no other explanation for it or any other thing to talk about with it. Some of the statistics that I like taking a look at in these games is time of possession. Usually Tennessee doesn't have a high time of possession where they move the ball so quickly. So obviously Kentucky had the edge in that one. Kentucky did have 2 turnovers in this game, 1 fumble, 1 interception. And this is something that you really like to see from Tennessee. 0 turnovers. Huge statistic anytime you're playing a SEC opponent or anybody for that matter. But, deep into these conference games, you like to see that. You like to see no turnovers whatsoever. Third down conversions. Of course, I said Kentucky went 5 for 12. Tennessee can't stop anyone on third down, it seems like. Tennessee, 50% on third down conversions, 4 for 8. You'd like to see that grow a little bit. But, like I said, it is what it is on that one. Let's move on. That's pretty much all I've got on the Kentucky and Tennessee game. Glad Tennessee got the W, one-handedly. I know during that segment I probably thrashed Tennessee, but I think the Tennessee defense deserves a thrashing, to be honest with you. I mean, there's just so much to be said about how much they can improve, man. It's like I said, it's frustrating sometimes. Aside from the Tennessee-Kentucky game, in the last episode, we did mention some notable games. I think it's fair to go ahead and give Mike a quick shout out on this one, including the Tennessee win over Kentucky. Mike went 4-0 on the predictions that we had in the last episode. He predicted every single one of these games and the winners of those games. So, Mike, shout out to you. Unfortunately, I went 2 for 2, but that's just how it is sometimes. It's really difficult to predict the outcomes of some of these games. But, Mike, 4-0, salute to you, man. And I just threw the Tennessee prediction in there as well, just so you can have a 4-0 record from last week. But the games that we talked about and the games that we kind of predicted who would win, we mentioned the Ole Miss Oklahoma game, the Vanderbilt Missouri game, and the Texas A&M LSU game. Now, like I said, I went 2-2. The only 2 games I got right was the Tennessee game and the Vanderbilt game. But real quick, Ole Miss beat Oklahoma 34-26. Super close game. It was just a SEC classic, man, really. I mean, you look at both teams playing for what you would consider potential playoff spots, giving the edge to Ole Miss there with only 1 loss. Oklahoma taking their second loss there to the Ole Miss Rebels. This game was, pretty tight throughout. I think it was kind of apparent that Ole Miss had a little bit more edge to them, and to me, just looked like the better team. This is one that I got wrong, and I hate to admit that. I did predict Oklahoma to win this game. That ain't how it happened. Ole Miss beat Oklahoma 34-26. This is one that I got right. And Mike got this one right as well. Obviously, Vanderbilt beat Missouri 17-10, and just an absolute defensive battle. I mean, the score should speak volumes to that. Take a look at the score and kind of understand how the game played out. 2 really evenly matched teams, to be honest with you. And I didn't know how this game was going to look. I just kind of had the feeling that Vanderbilt was going to win. I felt like that they were the better team. Interesting fact, the score at halftime to this game was 3-3. Ooh. I mean, that right there should tell you everything you need to know. 1 touchdown was scored in the third quarter by Vanderbilt. Each team tacking on a touchdown there in the fourth quarter made it very, very interesting. But, I have it written here in my notes. Vanderbilt keeps on winning. We said it on the last episode that we're most likely not going to talk trash about Vanderbilt anymore. And, I mean, you got to put some respect on their name, man. They're proving every week that they belong, and yeah, this game was a defensive battle for sure. Moving on to a really big game and a crazy game and a game that ended up having some big-time implications. Texas A&M and LSU. Mike, again, you predicted this one correctly. I, however, did not. And it's interesting because throughout the course of this game, well, up until halftime, it looked like I might have been onto something. But just to give you all perspective, in case you didn't watch this game, LSU was up at halftime, 18-14. So LSU had a 4-point lead on Texas A&M at halftime. After halftime, final score of this game was Texas A&M over LSU, 49-25. And this is just a tale of two halves. I mean, that's pretty much all you can say. Texas A&M ended up with 426 total yards. Obviously through the air they did pretty good, but on the ground, 224 rushing yards. I mean, the gap between these two teams on the ground is insane. Texas A&M had 224 rushing yards. LSU had 60 rushing yards. And really, if you've paid attention to LSU and their struggles on offense this season, you would know that their 60 rushing yards wasn't really that big of a surprise. They've been next to terrible on the ground this season. Really no surprise there. But what was surprising in this game was, the fact that LSU, I mean, they didn't look perfect. They didn't look like world beaters or anything like that. But leading at the half for any team, in my opinion, I'm a firm believer that if you're leading at half, then you've got a more than a fair shot of winning the ball game. But Texas A&M said otherwise. So there are some interesting stats in this game that wouldn't necessarily make you think that it was this bad of a blowout. For instance, the penalties. So LSU only had 4 penalties this entire game, 4, and it was only for a total of 27 yards. You look at A&M, they had 6 penalties for 65 yards. Now, that's one big stat that as a Tennessee fan, I typically do pay attention to. Typically, when you look at a stat sheet after a game, you can look at the penalties, and a lot of times that'll tell you who had success and who didn't. It's not the case in this game. LSU had no interceptions. They had no fumbles. So LSU in this particular game, no turnovers. And again, in a game like this, when the score is what it is and the team looks as terrible as LSU did, to have no turnovers is pretty impressive. And most of the time in football, if you know anything about it, their turnover battle, whoever wins that is typically the winner of the game. Well, in this game, A&M had 2 interceptions. They didn't have any fumbles, but 2 interceptions, so 2 turnovers to 0 for LSU. That's another kind of weird statistic that doesn't necessarily spell out the outcome of the game. The way I see it, Texas A&M's defense obviously won this game. Their offense was just electric, but the way that they shut LSU down in the second half was just so impressive. A really cool statistic here. Texas A&M converted on 7 of 10 third downs. Now, this is a big one right here. LSU only converted on 2 third downs the entire game. So LSU went 2 for 12 on third down. Those third down conversions are massive. Anytime you're converting 70% of your third downs like A&M did in that game, you're going to find success while only holding the other team 2 for 12 on their third down conversion. So LSU just looked like a hot mess in the second half. Like I said, it's a tale of two halves. I mean, it looked like 2 completely different teams coming out before and after halftime. But really, I think more so talking about how bad LSU looked, I think more so you have to give credit to Texas A&M and how they made their adjustments after halftime. I think that's exactly, that's why the game played out the way it did. Another notable game, we did not mention this one in our Friday episode, was the Alabama at South Carolina game. Now, this one came down to the wire. Close game all throughout. A lot of people probably didn't see that coming. I didn't see it coming either, but watching the game, it was crazy. I mean, you would have thought that at any moment, obviously either team could have taken the game over at any time, but it was looking more and more like South Carolina was going to have a real opportunity to win this game. This game came down to a final play, and, Alabama ended up making that final play, and they won the game. I mean, you had 2 late touchdowns that Alabama kind of knocked in there, and that's what kind of turned everything around, and they won 29-22. Alabama just keep finding ways to win, and it's really impressive. Something that I thought about before the recording was it's almost more impressive to watch a team grind out wins and find ways to win in situations where they could have easily lost. I think you could say that that's more impressive than just watching a team blow everybody out week after week. I think it speaks a lot to who they've become as the season's progressed. I think that they, I think there's no doubt that they've kind of found their identity And it's probably not the identity that everyone's used to seeing in an Alabama team. Watching them grind some of these wins out and kind of win in close margins, to me, has been very impressive. Very impressive. Now, obviously, beating at the time, 2-4 South Carolina team isn't that impressive. But, the way the game played out, I mean, Alabama went scoreless in the third quarter. In that moment, South Carolina put up 9 points in the third quarter, and that's kind of what changed the outlook of the game for them. All the momentum was on South Carolina's side at that point. Now, mind you, this was in South Carolina. So, really in that moment, everything was against Bama, and what did they do? They scratched, they clawed, and they found a way to win. So just an impressive team. I mean, Ty Simpson still continues to look good. 253 yards passing, 24 for 43, and 2 touchdowns there. In this one, as far as the team stats go, just looking at these really quickly, both teams did really well on third down conversions and fourth down conversions. The total yardage, give the edge to South Carolina, 333 total yards. Bama had 325. Rushing yards, South Carolina outrushed them. Both teams kind of racked up some penalties, but nothing major. Both teams had 2 turnovers. So, it was just one of those games where throughout the entire game, you just really didn't know who was going to win. It was just back and forth, back and forth. Not a high scoring game by any means, but definitely one of those classics, man. And I just thought that one was noteworthy to bring up just because of how close it was. And again, how impressive it is that Bama just seems to keep finding a way to win, even in tight games like this. I mean, looking back on what they've done so far this season, I mean, every game, minus the cupcake teams that they played earlier in the season, every game just seems like they've scratched out wins. A 3-point win in Georgia, 3-point win at Missouri, and then this one right here. Even though the score doesn't really seem like it, even the Tennessee game was kind of a tight game, and then the Vanderbilt game at times looked like it was a tight game. So yeah, I'm just going to move on from that one, but I just did want to mention that Alabama does keep finding ways to win, and I do think it's very impressive. Yeah, it is what it is. They're Bama for a reason. They're still Bama. So now moving on. So when I mentioned the Texas A&M and LSU game, I said that there were implications with this game. And by now, at the time of this recording, everyone already knows it. And by the time you watch this episode, you would have already read about it and you will already know all the details. But we have to mention it on the Fourth and Whatever podcast. LSU fired Brian Kelly. I don't think it was a big surprise. It seems like he's been on the hot seat for, a couple years now. I mean, not super hot seat talk, but he's been mentioned over the past couple years of being on the hot seat. And, this was the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, after the performance that his team put on and the coaching performance that his staff put on and everything like that, I mean, it was just a very, very, very low effort, poor performance. I don't know if any of you all watched this game, but it was a sight to see because about midway through the third quarter, LSU fans started clearing out of their own stadium. And by the end of the game, it was empty stands and Texas A&M fans. That's about all that was left. And it was crazy. It was crazy to see. But LSU made the decision to go ahead and fire Brian Kelly. We'll talk about Brian Kelly's overall record at LSU, 34-14, 19-10 in the SEC. He was hired in 2022, and in 2022 they did win an SEC championship. However, I would argue that in 2022 he was playing with players that he did not recruit. They were recruited by previous coaching staffs who did find success at one point or another. So, I mean, it's just one of those situations where what's next? I mean, what does LSU plan on doing? I will say that Brian Kelly joins a very long list of coaches that have been fired this season. The list is getting pretty long. I'm going to go ahead and show it to you right there. The list of coaches that have been fired so far in this season. Virginia Tech fired Brent Pry. Arkansas fired head coach Sam Pittman. Oklahoma State has fired Mike Gundy. UAB has fired Trent Dilfer. UCLA has fired Deshaun Foster. Florida has fired Billy Napier. Penn State has fired James Franklin. Oregon State has fired Trent Bray. Colorado State has fired Jay Norvell, and now LSU has fired Brian Kelly. Reading that list, I'm looking at 3, 4, potentially 5 or 6 major programs that have fired their head coaches in this offseason, man. It is untelling what you're going to see. I mean, anybody could. I mean, the season's not over, so anybody else could get fired. Who knows? But there's going to be a lot of voids and a lot of vacancies. And I think in the offseason, you're going to see a lot of coaches moving around. Whoever your favorite coach is or whoever your favorite team is, he might not be your coach next year. I mean, some of these big time programs like LSU, well, I mean, LSU and Florida, Penn State, those three alone are just major job openings. And you could argue that LSU is probably could be the biggest job opening in sports at the moment. LSU is a huge program, an historic program, and that job is going to be very attractive for a lot of people. Lately, it seems like there's been a lot of talks of Lane Kiffin potentially leaving Ole Miss and going to Florida. Well, all those talks were before this right here happened. LSU, that job is now open. Could they potentially sway Lane Kiffin into coming to LSU? Who knows? I mean, you're going to hear a lot of talks over the next few weeks, but I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. I mean, so many job openings, so many coaches get fired. Nobody's job is safe. There's a lot of money being paid out to these guys that are being fired. Just be on the lookout for those, and we'll keep everyone updated on the job openings, all the coaches, and the coaching searches and things of that nature. Now, on every Friday episode, we give you all our top 5 SEC rankings. Every Tuesday episode, we react to the latest AP Top 25 poll, and that's what we're going to do right now. The top 25 AP poll, your top 2 haven't changed. You got Ohio State and Indiana. Rounding out the top 5, you've got 3 SEC teams, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia. Really, I have no gripes with that. I agree with all of that. Out of those 5 teams, I think most of them are definitely the best in the country for sure. You know, some of the stuff that I see on here that's changed, obviously Tennessee went from 17 and bumped back up to 14, jumping back into that top 15. You like to see it. Let's see some of the other notable stuff. Obviously, Vanderbilt goes from 10 to 9. Your top 2 teams in the AP poll, obviously unbeaten. I can't wait to see those 2 go head to head. I think that a lot of people could argue that Indiana's strength of schedule is probably superior to Ohio State's. You could argue that Indiana's the better team. I saw a graphic that said number 1 Ohio State, big gap, and then everyone else. Until proven otherwise, I don't believe in that. I think that you must put respect on Indiana's name. They've got an incredible coach there in Kurt Cignetti. And I think what they're doing at that program, you have to respect regardless of how you feel about it. So both of those 2 teams undefeated. Obviously, number 3, Texas A&M, still undefeated. Texas A&M, to me, is I think they're definitely looking like the number 1 team in the SEC without question. I mean, I know they are, and I know they're ranked there, but I don't even think that you can second guess it. I mean, they look extremely good. Georgia Tech out of the ACC, I think that is probably my favorite to win the ACC for sure. You know, obviously I know you got Miami there, but Miami just hasn't looked like I thought they were going to continue to look, if that makes sense. We got some other SEC teams that are kind of creeping up and kind of fluctuating between that 20 and 15 area. It's just going to be shaken up. You know, week after week, this thing gets shaken up. And honestly, I can say this with full confidence that this 2025 college football season has been the most unpredictable, crazy, can't quite get the pulse of it, can't quite put your finger on it. You don't really know what's going to happen week after week. I think it makes it that much more exciting. I think it just makes it a lot stressful, to be honest with you, a lot more stressful than usual. Makes it hard to throw a couple parlays together, to be honest with you. I mean, makes it very difficult to do what Mike and I do on a weekly basis with the podcast, making predictions, talking about it, things of that nature. You know, with all that being said, this is much more difficult without Mike being here. But thank you all for watching. Thank you all for subscribing. Just stay tuned to what we do. Thanks for supporting the channel. Spread the word, share, like, comment, all that good stuff. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.